Welcome one and all to episode. This is going to be 399 if I'm not mistaken. We're close to 400 here. This is our 1988 special here on Signals from Mars. I do want to thank everyone for joining us. I have this illustrious crew of guests. Mike Jones in New Jersey, have Metal Dan in California, have Ed in Kansas, Jesus, Kentucky, have Brad in I almost said Utah, in Idaho, and we have Johan. Johan, are you with us? In Sweden. Johan is in a state of confusion.
He's joining a monastery where he can't speak. He has to be silent.
He can sort of hear us, I guess. Anyway, sorry guys for messing up your states, your names. It's been a long time, and I'm just
New Jersey, right
here. So
yeah, I'm going to have to go to Kansas for one of these shows just so I can do it live from Kansas.
There you go. That's the thing. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers away on this list, so I don't want to give the number one away right now.
All
right. By mentioning that band. But anyway, yeah. So for those of you that are new to this concept, people have voted for their top 10 favorite albums of 1988. We received more votes than ever before. And yeah, I'm thrilled with the turnout. I'm thrilled with the albums. There's a whole litany of different albums that were voted on. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff that did not make what we're going to discuss tonight. Real quickly, let me just mention this, that I did release an episode of my Patreon exclusive Victor M. Ruiz podcast where I went through albums 72 through 16. That list has expanded to 75 albums, and the order has switched around quite a bit. I'm not going to go through everything. Once this posts online, once the episode is live, the podcast version, video version, you guys will be able to take a look at the complete list to see where albums fell within the list and see where your favorites are. And earlier today I had a moment where someone compared. Look at that.
I just want to shout out to anybody watching or listening here. If you want to hear Victor talk about those albums that didn't make the top 15, is that what we're doing? Top 15. All you got to do is go on Patreon. You can join for $2 a month. Best $2 you've ever spent. And it's awesome.
Yes.
So there you go.
Cool. So yeah, real quickly, just to give you guys an idea, if any of you guys have listened to that episode today, as of the closing of the voting, this goes to show you how important voting is. Number 20 is King's X with Out of the Silent Planet. 19, LA Guns with their self-titled debut, LA Guns. 18, Living Color with Vivid. 17, Death with Leprosy. And 16, Poison with Open Up and Say Ah. So we go from Death to Poison. I guess Death is brought upon by Poison a lot of times. And we can get
that one I'm involved, man.
Discussion on that. Let's focus on the music here. So, okay. Coming in at number 15, this album was released on April 18th, 1988. Was recorded at Dirk's studio, Stottenheim Scorpio Studio, Hanover, West Germany. Was released by EMI and Mercury, respectively. Produced by Dieter Dirks. Singles include Passion Rules the Game, Believe in Love, and Rhythm of Love. We are talking about Scorpions and Savage Amusement. This is their follow-up to Love at First Sting. And it's interesting because for me, as a kid, when this album came out, this is, I think, the first Scorpions album that I actually bought because I was of age where I could buy things. And I really enjoyed the album. I still enjoy a lot of this album, but I know that a lot of older fans, especially the ones that got turned on to this album by Love at First Sting, felt that this was a letdown after Animal Magnetism, after Blackout, and after Love at First Sting. Brad, you're shaking your head. No. What are your thoughts on Savage Amusement?
I mean, I certainly didn't like it as much as those other albums, but I think it's a great album. And I mean, I listened to it. I listened to all these albums this week, and it was a blast. Just '88 was a great year. My only thing with this album that's weird is that there's no cymbals on the drums. Every so often you'll get one with a snare hit, but that's it. And I'm like, is this because there was no actual drummer playing? I don't know. Anyway, we'll probably never know.
We'll probably say that to Herman, because remember, he wrote all of their hits supposedly.
Yeah, he wrote the lyrics, but anyway, I like this album a lot. I think other than the missing cymbals, it sounds really good. Songs are really good. Had a blast listening to it with my son Nathan, who's 22 years old. First time he's ever listened to it, and he had a lot of good things to say about it. So there you go.
Okay, Ed, you're kind of nodding your head. What are your thoughts on Savage Amusement?
Well, you know, when this record came out, I wasn't buying anything like this. It was all thrash, metal, hardcore, that kind of stuff. So I never heard this record until my 30s or 40s when I started collecting vinyl again.
Okay.
And I picked up a copy.
Oh, crap. Ed just bottomed out. Dan, anything to say about Savage Amusement?
Yeah, I listened to it a lot when it came out. It's not going to make my top 10, and I forgot to vote for Kicks.
Ooh, I got you, Dan.
And I tell you what, Dan,
I didn't see it. I looked right there, and I said, "It's right there." Why didn't I see it? So no, nothing on Scorpions.
Blow My Fuse 22.
I fucked up.
I hate it when
You're back.
Ed, you were saying. Go ahead.
The Firefox crashed there for a second. But anyway, I've listened to it, since then, and I thought it was quite good. I was surprised, actually, how good it was. I don't like listening to it as much as anything before it. But I think I like it better than most everything they've released since then. So I've hung on to that record. I'm going to keep it for a while. It's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know a lot of people, for example, really like their next release more, Crazy World, but to me, I think Crazy World kind of went too commercial. Like they were trying to recapture what they did on Love at First Sting by putting out some radio friendly stuff, and looking back at this album and listening to songs off of it to prepare for this list, I mean, outside of the closing track, because I'm not a ballad guy, I like the rest of the album. I think the album is solid. Like you're saying, Ed, it's not, it's not going to make, I'm not going to put some of the other albums aside for this one, but it's not a bad album. I think it's an album of its time. I think it's still strong.
It is.
Mike, anything regarding Savage Amusement?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the general sentiment that it's a solid Scorpions album. I think probably fully half of the songs in here are on my regular Scorpions rotation, my playlist. So yeah, it was a bit of a departure. They got less heavy as they went through the albums leading up to this. But you can't fault them for wanting some commercial success too. So it's definitely an album of the time, song wise.
Okay, cool. Moving on, number 14, released in on November 18th, so it is almost anniversary time for this album. 36 years. Recorded at Universal Recordings in Chicago. Label is Atlantic. Producer was Jason Flom and the band. There are no singles off of this album. But I remember hearing a mixtape when I first came over, and I was told, you need to listen to Kings of Metal by Manowar. Everyone was telling me they're going to replace Iron Maiden. They're going to replace Judas Priest and Saxon. They're the best thing to come out of America in I don't know how many years. And I said, who? Because I had no clue who they were. Sure enough, after that summer, I came back to the States. Eddie Trunk was playing them like crazy because they were a New York band from upstate New York, albeit. And MTV started playing videos of theirs as well. So tracks off of this that stand out to me, the title track, Kings of Metal, Hail and Kill, and Blood of the Kings is probably the song that I've listed the most off of this. Anyway, this is Manowar. Dan, you voted for this.
Hail and Kill. And they get the Warrior's Prayer, and then it builds up to Blood of the Kings, and he's screaming.
Yeah.
It's a great album. It's been like 10 years since they've last been to the States. They just sit in Europe. They just sit over there, and supposedly a U.S. New York band that has no love. Can't do it here. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Anyone else want to speak about Manowar?
I had a couple of their albums when I was like 15.
Okay.
But again, I quit paying attention after Slayer and Megadeth were taking over. But they're a fun band to listen to every once in a while. You all actually have me wanting to crank some of that up in the car this weekend. I might do that. They got some good tunes to turn up loud.
You want to blow your speakers? Is that what it is? That what you're saying?
We'll try.
That's right. Other bands play, Manowar kills.
Damn right.
What are you going to say, Mike? I think I talked on top of you there.
I was going to say, like, this album is basically testosterone personified in music. I mean, it'll get the blood pumping. It's like Ed said, at 15, Manowar was it. Their message. Cool, they are no posers, true metal. Their message comes through loud and clear.
Mm-hmm. I could listen to it then, and I listen to it now, and I think that's why it makes it strong on the list. Is it's still relevant, it's still solid, and it's well packaged, put together, acoustically sounding.
A lot of people voted for this album,
as it should.
This is where the word consistency comes in, and a lot of these albums, especially when we get into the top 10 specifically, the albums may be all over the place on people's lists, but they were consistently voted on, whether it was in the top half of people's lists or whether it was in the bottom half of lists. And this Manowar album, especially from people that came from Europe that voted, that submitted a 1988 list, quite a few people voted for this. So... Johan, glad to have you. Can you hear us now?
Sure, I'm on the phone. Victor, can you send me a new link while you're doing the show on whatever platform you like? But I don't know what's wrong. The phone works, the computer doesn't. So, yep. That's how it is.
Okay. Do you need me to send you another link, you're saying?
If you can, please do.
Okay. Let's see. I'll send it to you through Facebook. How about that?
Sure.
All right. It is very important to have Johan on these shows. He gives us some special.
He's a wise man.
He's a wise
heavy
man.
metal man.
He gives us some special perspective on these lists. So, all right. So moving forward, this is now album 13. All right, released in May 23rd, 1988. Recorded between September 87 and April 88. If I say the studio, it's going to give it away. Released on Warner Brothers and produced by Don Landy, as well as the band.
You've already given it away.
Yeah, I figured. Was recorded at 5150 Studios. And singles.
You hear lots of cymbals on this album, too.
No cymbals, you said?
No, you can hear lots of cymbals.
Oh. Well, yeah. Feel So Good was the fourth single. Third single was Finish What You Started. 2 is When It's Love. And Black and Blue was the first single. I never remember hearing Black and Blue on the radio, ever. When It's Love is the first thing that I heard off of this. And it drove me absolutely crazy. Anyway, so coming in at number 13, it is OU812 by Van Halen, the second album with Sammy Hagar, affectionately known as Van Hagar to a lot of people. Anyone want to talk about this album? This is something I can't speak to. I mean, I could, but I mean,
that's all right.
There's
you can't say something nice.
All right, so Black and Blue, I don't mind. I think Sucker in a 3-piece is okay. Source of Infection is all right, but
fun fact here, Victor.
Go ahead.
Shelley, not only is she known for singing Ace of Spades, but she can sing Source of Infection. Nailed it. She can really nail it. So
can she?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been done. Here's what I'll say about this album. I like this album a lot. I like it a lot better than the first one they did with Sammy. It sounds better. And again, listening to it again this week, it's like, holy crap, you can actually hear drums being hit, not electronic drums, real acoustic drums, cymbals, the whole thing. It's not overly produced. It sounds, everything's in its place on here. And I think the songs are good. And they did some pretty cool rhythms in here too, especially the first song, Mine All Mine, trying to figure out like how they play that. That's pretty cool stuff going on here. A lot of great drumming. There you go.
Who's got the feedback?
I don't know. Let's see. It's not me. Damn it, Johan.
Okay. Let's see. Brad, real quickly. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
There is a shitload of electronic drums on this album. What are you talking about?
Where? This sounds like no sense to me. No, but listen. I listened to this.
Van Halen replaced all his toms. His snare is a real snare, but his toms are all electronic.
They sound real. They sound real on this album.
They do not sound real. Go back and watch any of the live footage from this tour. He's got the shells.
I'm talking about.
He has the shells of acoustic drums, and he's got Simmons drums over top of all the damn toms.
Yeah, I saw them on this tour. They were awful. I'll just put it that. Yeah, they got in a fight after the first song, Sammy and Eddie, because Eddie wanted to go back to the hotel and drink, and Sammy's like, "Come on, man! This is the Monsters of Rock tour in Spokane, Washington, or if you're Klaus, it's Spokane." Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing, man. It's like it was a really half-assed show. So there you go. But anyway, I still really like this album. And I'm telling you, I listened to this just 2 days ago, man. I thought the drums sounded really good, did not sound electronic.
I'm
I
not
know
saying
that
I'm not saying they don't sound good. I'm just saying they are
they're
electronic.
samples. You're saying they're all samples. I mean, you listen to Scorpion's drum. Not one of that sounds like a real drum on that Savage Amusement album.
On Savage Amusement, those okay. So those are samples of real drums being used. Okay.
Yeah.
And Alex Van Halen was using Simmons drums. Those are not samples at all. I'm gonna send you footage.
Okay, all right. We'll take this. We'll take this outside.
We'll take this outside later. There you go.
People here want to drink and party. They don't want to hear us fighting over Tom sounds. Okay. Look who's here.
It is Anthony Mackie. Anthony, how are you tonight?
Oh,
good.
Excellent. So, who else wants to discuss OU812? Anyone else want to say something?
I bet Anthony has some wise words about this album. Anthony always has like the most just concise, wise takes on
it. Never liked it. How about that?
There you go.
That was how concise, more concise.
That was direct, straight to the point. Anyone else, or we'll move on to the next one?
Come on, Mike.
I don't know. To me, I always enjoyed the album. Again, not their best, not their worst. Definitely more of a Sammy influence, obvious in a lot of the lyrical content, especially as compared to the album before. But there's some solid singles. Big fan of AFU and Finish What You Started. So, but overall, not my favorite, not my least favorite. It's probably somewhere smack dab in the middle of the Van Halen catalog to me.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So next album here. This is number 12. Whew. I'm surprised at how many people voted for this, and I know.
Must be one of your favorites.
Again, I will say that there are some people from back home that will kill me for this, and there are a lot of people from Europe that voted for this album. I have never owned it. It was released on September 19th. So again, also just celebrated its 36th year. Was recorded between May 1st and July 31st of 1988. Was recorded at Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver. Released on Mercury in North America. Vertigo, the rest of the world. Produced by Bruce Fairbairn. Singles off of this album include Living in Sin, Lay Your Hands on Me, I'll Be There for You, Born to Be My Baby, Bad Medicine, Anthony. You kind of, in my opinion, you summed it up for me, but people have voted. Dan has walked away. It is New Jersey by Bon Jovi. This is what Dan
my
was
wife up there
about,
for comments.
the well being poisoned. Anyone live that wants to discuss New Jersey by Bon Jovi?
Well, as the New Jersey representative here, I guess I'm state bound to do that. I just have to say that, when I was on a date, popping this in the cassette deck of my 77 Camaro worked every time. Otherwise, didn't get much of a listen.
So there you go. All right, number 12.
Whew, that was quick.
Yes.
It was like passing a kidney stone, wasn't it, Dan?
Took a shit.
All right. So let's move on to 11. Released on May 13th, 1988. Recorded between December 87 and March 88. By saying where it was recorded, it may give it away for some people. It was recorded at Ibiza Sound Studio in Spain. Also in Puck Recording Studios in I can't pronounce. Gruzlev, I don't know, was recorded by the band, which they probably deserve a swift kick in the ass for doing so, but also Tom Allum was involved. Singles include a cover of Johnny Be Good
Oh no. Oh, no.
and the title track. Oh shit.
I mean, are people just voting for the band, not the album? Come on. This
Ran
is
it
this is
down,
what-
Judas Priest.
this is my least favorite Priest album of all of them. Least. It's tough to listen to. Oh, those are real drums, definitely.
No, those are not real
No,
drums.
I know. I'm
They
no.
they sent Dave Holland away. When was the last time that Dave Holland actually played on? Defenders of the Faith, maybe?
Maybe.
He didn't
Yeah.
play on this. He didn't play on Turbo.
No.
And they replaced him for Painkiller.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, all right, so this is my stab at why this album plays so high. Because a lot of people from Europe voted on this. And I think because it was a place in time where this was perhaps one of the first albums they ever got.
Wow.
So that's probably why
They
this.
bought more.
What's that?
They went back and bought more. This would have stopped me from buying any more Priest albums if I bought this one first. Oh,
Yeah, this was one, and I tell you what, I remember reading an interview with Rob Halford when this album came out,
oh
and he sounded like such a pretentious idiot talking about the album, talking about how great it was,
oh, no.
talking about how no album before it was ever heavier, talking about how no one had ever released a track called heavy metal before. And the interviewer said, Sammy Hagar has a pretty famous song called Heavy Metal, which was on the Heavy Metal movie soundtrack.
Great song.
And Halford said, oh, we didn't know that. And of course, years later, I found out that this was Halford at the height of his alcoholism and drug addiction. So I'll give him a pass on
This
that.
is why he liked this album. I don't drink enough. That's my problem.
There's maybe 2 songs that I like off of this album. The rest is just as not good.
It sounds awful. It's just really tough to listen to. It sounds like demo. It sounds like demo that they just did in somebody's garage.
And the funny thing is, off of this, is they've got worse shit that they recorded with what the heck were the Bananarama producers and these people that they recorded 3 songs with them, and they were smart enough to not release them. They at least drew the line there and said, yeah, no, this is kind of alienating our crowd. They didn't do it with this other stuff, but
Wouldn't you like to hear those songs though? I would.
Halford says they're on YouTube. I've never searched them out. Never. So, all right. So moving on to number 10. We are now in the top 10.
Oof. These are all going to be bangers. Let's go.
I think they are.
Dan will not walk away during one of these albums.
I don't think Dan will walk away from any of these, and I think he'll be happy with some of the albums that placed in here because he voted for some of these.
Ah.
So, recorded in April of 88, released on September 13th, 1988. Recorded at Cherokee Studios in Hollywood.
Oh, it sounds like a...
Released on Epic Records, produced by the band and Mark Dodson. Singles include Trip at the Brain and the title track, How Will I Laugh Tomorrow?
That's a good album.
It is Suicidal Tendencies with How Will I Laugh Tomorrow if I Can't Smile Today. Dan?
Sold out again. They're coming here in Garden Grove, California. Weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's a nice little venue. They just keep coming back to this place. It's like they're home now. So totally live band. Mike Muir kills it. I'm not going. It was a bad timing. But I listen to this album a lot. Give it up for Suicidal. Suicidal for life.
Nice.
Cool. Anthony, anything to say about this album?
Other than I love it, not much. It's
Okay.
amazing. I love this album.
There you go.
Straight and concise. Ed?
I think I like the one before it better, but this was still another good effort by them. I'm trying to see what tracks are on there, but see what I recognize. But yeah, with each album, I got a little less interested in Suicidal. It's kind of like they have good songs here and there, but sometimes I have a hard time listening to a whole record unless it's the first one.
Okay.
But I remember that this was a big record that year.
It's funny because I think over the years the Trip at the Brain is a big one, and so is the title track, but Pledge Your Allegiance is probably the biggest song to come off of this because it's their closer every time that I've seen them anyway. Mike, Suicidal.
Love Suicidal. They had me hooked since the first album. Just kept getting better and better quality musicians as they went along. Rocky George on guitar, just absolutely shreds. It's kind of they went from more pure punk to more of a metal influence as they went to, and this was absolutely a sweet spot. Probably the album I grabbed the most from them to listen to overall from their catalog. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right.
This is your favorite one of the whole catalog?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. All right. So number 9. Released also on September 19th. Was Suicidal released that day too? No, 13th. So the week before. All right. Recorded from April to June 88. Studio was Quad Radial Studios in Miami, Florida. Released on, this will give it away, Megaforce Island. Producers include the band, Mark Dodson, Alex Perialis, John Zazula, Marcia Zazula. Singles include another cover, originally recorded by the French band Trust, Antisocial, Make Me Laugh, and also Who Cares Wins was a single off of this because that video got played quite a bit on MTV. It is the first album that I ever owned by Anthrax. It is State of Euphoria. It is our number 9. And while in New Jersey, Mr. Mike Jones showed me a tattoo that he has from this album. It is the cover of one of the singles.
Yes. So yeah, obviously top choice for me. It just this was my number 1. It hit at the right time, the right style of music. Not one skipper song on there. No filler to me. The overall quality of it, and it just hits. I love this album.
Cool.
Came out on cassette, and I played it over and over and over in the truck driving everywhere. Listened to this one a lot. Good on the list.
Awesome. Ed?
Yeah, this one was rough for me because I was such a huge fan of their previous 2 albums, and even saw them in concert on the Among the Living tour. So I was very excited, for what was to come next. And I did listen to it a lot, but it was like I was wanting to like it as much as the stuff from before, but I don't know, it just never clicked with me as much, and I kind of started to lose a bit of interest in Anthrax after this. But I don't disagree with you guys. It's a good album. It's even on my top 10 list because it's one of those records I listened to the most that year. But I was a little disappointed compared to how much I loved the stuff before that. But yeah, it's not a bad, and I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times an album cover can affect the way that my brain accepts music.
Absolutely.
Or what, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you guys
You're right
do.
on. Yep.
And
you're
for
right
some
on.
reason, sometimes when someone, especially them, puts out a yellow album cover,
Yep.
it doesn't speak metal to me.
Yep.
And it kind of it takes away some of the dark feeling that I wanted to have in the music that I listen to. And but that's just a funny, quirky thing about
No,
me.
you're right on.
Am I?
Yeah,
good
72
to hear.
seasons says the same problem.
Exactly. I was going
Yeah.
to bring that up too. Yeah. But I think I maybe liked Persistence of Time. You know, when I go back and listen to those records, I may have liked the songs on that one a little better. But yeah, this was still it was still a good effort for them. What about you, Victor?
Yeah.
How do you like this one compared to, because you like some of the later John Bush stuff the most?
Well, the Bush stuff is my favorite of all the Anthrax eras. But I mean, I like all of the eras from the band. I would consider Anthrax a top 5 band for me. I played the crap out of this when it came out, and looking back at it, because I wanted to be objective with it, I still think it's a good album. I do think that it's probably the weakest out of all of the original Joey albums, though. Out of the original Joey run, I think this is probably the worst thing that they released, because I think I love Persistence of Time as well. I love how they got heavier, how they mixed in different influences, and the band showed that they could be more than what they were on Spreading and on Among the Living. And I think that gets lost on some fans. Some quote unquote diehard fans will only listen to Among the Living, and it's like, this band has done so much more than just that album. So that to me is kind of disappointing. I think the production on this is kind of flat as well. And they've admitted that they were forced to release this album because of the popularity of Among the Living. So as good as this album was, probably if they had worked the songs a little more, it probably would have been a little better.
That's a good way to explain it, I think.
Yeah. It just seems like they were, all right, you guys are on a streak, just keep going. And especially, let's not forget that they released that I'm the Man EP before this also. Yeah. And that was the biggest thing that they had sold. It was the biggest selling EP at the time. I don't know if that's still the case. So the band was on a hot streak, and Atlantic had gotten involved with them and everything. So they weren't just on Island Megaforce anymore. It was a big deal. They were getting pushed. And subsequently, they got on that MTV tour. They had a lot of, publicity behind them. So this had to come out. They had to kind of feed the beast. And I think in hindsight, they'll even admit that this album was a little rushed. So, Anthony, anything you want to add about this?
Well, just that even at the time, and however old I was, it felt rushed.
Okay.
Even at the time when it came out, songs kind of felt half written, but it was nothing bad. I played it a lot. I didn't like it, and I didn't make my top 10. But it felt rushed at the time, and it was obvious that it was. And I'm not surprised to hear that it was.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Moving on here. Number 8. I'm trying to figure out why
Ocho.
screens have switched here. Number 8, released August 29th, 88, recorded. Holy shit. This was recorded between May to June of 88. And I'm saying holy shit because back then albums were not recorded and released 2 months after
No.
they finished recording. I have to think that a lot of this was, yeah, it makes sense because the previous album came out the year before. Interestingly enough, this band accompanied Anthrax on their big MTV Headbangers Ball tour along with Exodus. Dan, you voted for this as well. So it was recorded at Horus Sound Studios in Hanover, Germany. Recorded by or produced by Tommy Newton and Tommy Hansen. Label was Noise. This album set the bar for a lot of bands that came out after them. The part 1 and part 2.
Gives me goosebumps.
Halloween with Keeper of the Seven Keys part 2. A lot of times when I am forwarded quote unquote power metal albums, I'm sent Hammerfall, I'm sent so many other bands of this ilk. It just makes me turn on these 2 albums because it seems like they took what Maiden and Priest did, kind of did their own thing with it, and they pioneered a subgenre where people have just gotten goofy with what they do within this subgenre. It's unfortunate, but they go too far with the lyrics. They go too far with the image. They go too far with how fast they play with a lot of this stuff. Yes, I get it. You can play 1,000,005 arpeggios in half a second, but the song sucks. Who cares? Halloween was an eye opener for me. It was a band that I came over to Europe and people were saying, you need to check this out. You need to check this out. Much like Manowar, which we spoke about before. Manowar just didn't do it for me. Halloween did. And it didn't have to do with the image either. It just had to do with the composition and what they did with songs. They added prog elements with, the song Keeper of the Seven Keys. But this whole album, I mean, I look back at it the other day.
Oh.
Eagles Fly Free, You Always Walk Alone, Rise and Fall, Dr. Stein.
Fall?
Yeah, exactly. You Got the Right, I think, is the only song off of this that I occasionally skip. March of Time, I Want Out, and like I said, the title track. I listened to this so many summers coming over. This album is just huge in my in the soundtrack of my life. Dan, your thoughts?
Scream for me, Johan. He's saying right now, #1 album, probably. Yeah, we agree, buddy. It's a masterpiece all the way through. Could listen to it then, listen to it now. Absolutely. High on my list.
Awesome. Mike?
Yeah, agree with the sentiment here. An absolute masterpiece. The vocals from Michael Kiske on the album are just amazing. Like the notes that he hits. I think this was the first tour that I saw them on, and they delivered just as well live as they did in the studio, which I never expected. Considering the quality of the sound, but no, great band, great album.
Cool. Anyone else want to discuss Halloween?
I'm not really familiar with part 2. I think part 1 was the last Halloween album I heard, listened to. But now that you mention some of the song titles, I think the band I was in at the time used to cover I Want Out.
Probably. That's probably their most popular song. I mean, it got a lot of airplay and the video got played a lot on MTV back in the day. And again, it probably had a lot to do with that partnership that they had on that MTV tour with Exodus and Anthrax. So, all right. It's interesting how a lot of the same producers, a lot of the same labels of bands that that I've been discussing, or we've been discussing here with this countdown. Number 7, released on May 10th, 1988. Again, recorded January, February 1988. And recorded at Pyramid Sound Studios in Ithaca, New York, on Atlantic Megaforce. Produced by Alex Perry-Alice. Ed, get that vinyl going. It is the second full-length album. Where'd it go here?
The New Order?
The New Order by Testament.
I do have that one.
I
have the original vinyl.
And they just remastered and re-released it. But Ed, go
That's
ahead.
right. I've got my record store guys looking for its release so I can grab a copy of that and the Legacy.
Okay.
I have to have
that. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on this album?
I don't like it as much as the Legacy, but still loved it. Me and my buddies, especially my thrash metal friends, we listened to this album nonstop. We were huge. My guitar playing friends were huge.
Oh. All right. I'm sure Ed will be back. Anyone else want to tackle New Order by Testament?
Sometimes bands can play songs over and over in every tour and every set, and you get tired of it and whatnot. But that's not the case with the Disciples of the Watch. When that comes on, I get all excited, like Metallica playing Whiplash. I love this album. I put it up high on my list. I listened to it a lot then. I listen to it a lot still to this day.
Cool. Ed, continue.
I'm sorry, my browser has been crashing tonight. But anyway, we were huge fans of Alex. I saw them on both the Legacy tour and then also on this tour. I think Overkill opened up for him. And I remember standing up there by the stage just watching Alex play the whole time. He's just an amazing player because he was different than all the other shredders back then. The only thing I didn't like about this record, kind of like the Legacy, I mean, it had a better production. It was more clean, but it's a very trebly clean. It's very, I mean, everything's in that treble range. It feels like, but a lot of records were made like that back then.
Yeah.
It would be kind of cool to hear some of those songs with that beefier sound, which is why I did kind of like some of the tracks they did on First Strike is Deadly. It was kind of cool to hear some of those songs with that, beefier, juggy sound from some of the modern amps.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
Chuck Billy, the one time that I got to interview him, he said the reason they did that was because they hated how this album sounded. And he flat out said that Megaforce foisted Alex Perry-Alice on them for the first 2 albums, and that when the albums were coming out, they were listening to the Metallica albums, the Megadeth albums, the Anthrax albums, and saying, all these albums sound much better than ours. We don't sound like this live. Why is he recording us like this? And the kind of thing was, I guess Perry-Alice was saying, oh, I've worked with all these bands. I know what I'm doing. You guys don't.
Mm-hmm.
So they always wanted to re-record those songs. So I'm interested to hear the remaster and the remix of these first 2 albums. If
Me too.
they've sonically improved upon what they originally did or not. But we'll see.
I have a quick surreal story. Okay. So at the Mouse House in Orange County, California, was Testament opening up. I think it was for Dio. And so upstairs, I saw Chuck Billy. You mentioned Chuck. And I knew this was going to be weird. So Kerry King was standing right in front of me. And I said, Kerry, can you get Chuck I need to get his autograph. I knew that was fucking awesome. And so that Carrie just said, yeah, no problem, man. Like as if we were friends with Carrie. And I was more in awe of Chuck Billy. And I was like, Chuck, thank you so much. And he signed it and gave it back. That's it. That was awesome. That's all I needed.
That is awesome.
That's beyond awesome. I thank you for sharing that, Dan.
It flashes in my head every now and then that I had to ask Carrie to get Chuck's attention.
That's so cool. Mike, go ahead.
I just got to say, Dan, that is the one of the most metal stories ever. Love that. But yeah, I guess the trebleness, definitely stands out. One thing about Testament to me is, it felt like Chuck Billy's vocals got better and better every album. Like he learned to sing better, got a lot more quality out of it, and that really shines through here. Got some absolute bangers here that they still play live to this day. Trial by Fire, Into the Pit, Disciples of the Watch. I mean, there's some great tunes here.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. Anyone else? Anthony or Brad? Anything about Testament?
I can't add anything. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's cool. Moving on here, folks. Where are we? Okay. So coming in at number 6, released in October of '88. So this month, celebrating its 36th birthday. Recorded at Enterprise Studios and Goodnight LA Studios, California. Just says recorded in '88. Wow, I didn't realize that Roy Thomas Baker recorded this along with Keith Olsen, producers on it. Released on Epic CBS. I memorized all the lyrics to this album in a week when it came out. I don't remember all the lyrics with my 51-year-old brain, but back then I did.
That's impressive.
So singles as per this, and there were more singles off of this. It says Miracle Man and it says Crazy Babies. Also Breaking All the Rules was a single. It is the 5th studio album. Yeah, 5th solo album by Ozzy. It is No Rest for the Wicked. It is pretty much the entire world's introduction to Zakk Wylde. And definitely a much heavier album than Ultimate Sin, although it's got its moments where it is on its, I don't want to say poppier side, but things like Breaking All the Rules and Crazy Babies are like more straight ahead hard rock. But even the ballad on this, Fire in the Sky, is like heavier than I think any other ballad that he's released in his entire solo career. It's probably why it's the one that I go back to the most. But yeah, I was in awe of this album when it came out because to me it was the heaviest thing that he released, and it maybe still be the heaviest thing with things like Bloodbath in Paradise and Demon Alcohol and stuff like that, which are fast and heavy and things that'll probably never, well, don't know that he'll ever do anything else again live, but you get my point. No Rest for the Wicked. Brad, you have anything to say about this album?
Yeah, this is a great album. I listened to this week, and other than very few cymbals in this.
There's a lot of cymbals on this album.
No. Listen to it again. Yeah, the drums.
Yes.
The drums are huge.
I learned how to play copying Randy Castillo.
Okay, all right. Well, the recording I have has them muted, but there's really, really great songs. The whole album is a great listen. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it this week. I was like, wow, and I'm looking at Yard Metal right now. I'm not playing one damn song off of this album on Yard Metal. That's really pissing me off. So I'm gonna fix that.
Need to rectify that.
Yeah, I'm rectifying it. Yes, I am. Might even bleach it. Okay.
Here you go. I will say
Bleach bath in paradise.
There you go. Well, with no gum and weird spots. Anyway, there's a lot of symbols on this. There's the Devil's Daughter has reverse symbols all over the place. Crazy Babies, the entire intro is like all crash symbols. A Tattooed Dancer, he's doing a lot of muted stuff on the symbols as well. Or not Tattooed Dancer, Demon Alcohol.
Maybe my ears are gone.
I think
That's probably.
I was gonna say maybe years of being next to hi-hats or
I'm talking about hi-hats and rides. It's like there's no like, I mean, there's crashes here and there, but it's not. Yeah, the hi-hat and ride. You can't tell me he just played like that. Was he Rick Allen? Come on. All right.
Brad, I said this during the Patreon podcast today. One of the funny things about having hearing aids is listening to original mixes of things and saying, "Oh wow, where'd that note come from all of a sudden?" Because I can hear certain frequencies that I couldn't before, or thinking, hey, why did they mix this so that part of the song is now gone? Yeah, I can hear it again. So
anyway, I love the album. It deserves to be in the top 10. I think it's one of Ozzy's best solo albums. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job, Bob Daisley, on writing all that stuff. Yeah.
Bob Daisley has writing credits on what didn't
they give him credit?
Yeah. Yes.
He wrote the entire thing. Well, actually, it's credited to the entire band. The writing credits for this album are the entire band. So it's Bob Daisley, it's Zach Wild, John Sinclair, and it's Randy Castillo.
Wow.
So everyone got credit for this one. Martin Popoff gives this 9 out of 10 stars. All Music, 4 out of 5 stars. Rolling Stone, the bastion of all music, gave it 1 star.
Yeah, I was going to say, they didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Dumbasses.
Mike, anything to say about No Rest for the Wicked?
No, nothing really to add. I mean, it's, Ozzy at his finest.
Okay. Dan?
It's fun to look back at Zach and see he's so young looking and girly looking and pretty and clean.
That is fun.
Yeah. I listened to it over and over. Who knew that Zach was going to be so much of an influence on Ozzy? We had no idea what was still coming. His sound I think is a staple of a new era to Ozzy. He made it his own. And I love the video for Crazy Babies. The girls are so well done in that. The video direction of that is good. And I saw the tour. Absolutely. I didn't vote in my top 10 because I needed room because there's so much. But it absolutely, I listened to it a lot. And I can still listen to it today.
Great album.
Anthony, anything to add about this album?
Other than I bought this when it came out and listened to it, and I hate to be the critic here, but I remember listening to it. And I bought the record, so I had to listen to it a lot, and it was one of those experiences where I found myself trying to convince myself that it was good.
Right.
And like, okay, I bought this, so I'm gonna damn well like it, but it didn't quite get there. I think, and it's just, I felt it's the start of Ozzy's becoming a caricature of himself, with like Demon Alcohol being the main culprit there. But like, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that's what gets lost on some people with streaming, is that how many albums did we get stuck with back in the day where either a review or an album cover or one single was like, wow, this is great, I got to get this. You pick it up, you spend all your money on it, and you're like, wow, the rest of the album is kind of a dud. But I'm going to listen to it 80 times because I bought it, and I have to convince myself that I like it as much as that first single. So, yeah, that's a great point. Ed, anything to add on No Rest for the Wicked?
I was so sad that they got rid of Jake that I did not go buy this album. And I like it, but I just listened to it and got used to it through MTV because they were playing these videos quite a lot.
Right.
But I never bought it. I do have it now since I've been collecting records. And I think it's probably my favorite Jakey or Zach album.
Okay.
When we talked about Ozzy in that episode, most of his records, they're I like songs on the different records, and they're usually the hit songs, but I'm not crazy about listening to whole Ozzy records, and just don't pay as much attention to them as I did, those first 4 or 5. Yeah.
Right.
First 3, I'm saying. Yeah, I'm getting that wrong.
2,
Yeah.
1.
All right, cool. So let's move on here to number 5. Album released on July 5th, 1988. Recorded from December 87 to February 88. What are you holding up there? Was recorded in Hit City West, Los Angeles, Chungking Studios in New York. Released on Def Jam, produced by the band and Rick Rubin. There's only one single listed, and it is the title track. It is, as Ed being the clairvoyant that he is, South of Heaven by Slayer. Ed, go ahead.
That album cover looks like all the stories I would hear in Bible class about the sins of mankind and the torments of hell. This this album was different, and I was I was not expecting it at all the way it sounded. Because Rain and Blood was my introduction, and just listen to that one over and over and over again. I still do. When this came out, I was expecting, maybe Rain and Blood Part 2. And so I was kind of shocked by the difference in the slower sound and the longer songs. But it didn't take me long for it to grow on me, just a listen or two. And it's probably my second favorite Slayer record. I like it better than Seasons in the Abyss. And one thing that's been really cool about this record is, of course, back then the songs grew on me. The more I listened to this record, the more I enjoyed it. And that's continued to be the case my whole life, that this record just continues to become more and more appreciated by me. When I'm not wanting to listen to Rain and Blood, this is kind of the next thing I want to hear. And I saw them on this tour, which was a great memory that I have. I was at Bogart's in Cincinnati, and that place was packed, every ticket sold. And I made my way to the very front, and for that show, they had a wooden barrier to keep people away from the stage. And with all those people, they had me, packed up against that wall. And so I went home with, scars on my chest and stomach being pushed up against that wall. But it was just so cool to be at a Slayer show in that mass of people, and looking at Kerry King. That's back when he still had his long hair. And I just thought he was as awesome as could be. And Tom Araya up there singing with his Sex Murder Art t-shirt. I thought that was cool. And I went to the mall and had one made for myself so I could freak out people around town. This was my number 1 record of the year. And for people like Jeremy, who aren't huge Slayer fans, he would like this better than Rain and Blood.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this was a lot of people's number 1. The problem is everything above this pretty much was within people's top 3 albums, so that's why this ended up at 5. I'll mention this in a second, but anyone else want to talk about Slayer?
I think if you can use the words Slayer and accessible in the same sentence, this is probably the most accessible album as far as lyrical clarity and being able to pick things out as you go through. I'm a big vocals, big lyrics guy, and this one's always hit well for me on that because you can understand everything that he's saying all the way through it. Still miss Jeff Hanneman. It's a great album, right up there, top 2 or 3 with me as well for the band.
That's a good point, Mike. But if you were going to give someone that first Slayer record that may not be a thrash metal head, this would be the one to give them.
If my memory serves, I think it was Priest, Slayer, and Testament, the same show in Los Angeles, and Slayer scared the hell out of me. I think this was my first introduction really to seeing Slayer live. I bought the album when it came out. Behind the Crooked Cross, Mandatory Suicide, absolutely stands out song. Spill the Blood, of course, South of Heaven with that opening riff. It's just, you start getting pumped up and get ready. But I mean, the live show when they drop those barriers on the side with the upside down crosses and the red, and you're just like, what is happening? Yeah. And I'm young in life and stupid because I'm a boy and a guy, and it's just like, oh shit, this is happening. So intense at the time. Awesome. It was new. Like, wow, what a stage production. Yeah. I think they kicked Priest's ass, if that's my memory.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Well, was it the Ram It Down tour?
I think so. Yeah. At the LA thing that's gone now. I was kind of scared. I mean, I admit it. Like, Slayer's coming. I wanted to see it, but oh shit, I knew that the Satanism was all bullshit. I knew that this is just, what they got to do. But at the same time, it was fucking intense.
This record also has one of those, it's like a Escape with Metallica. Kerry King always hates on Cleanse the Soul. And that's one of my favorite songs on this record. It's got an awesome jam, especially in the middle of the song, that I don't understand how he could not like it and wish he would play it sometime.
I think Ed hit the nail on the head there earlier on with his description of this album. It's absolutely fantastic. And, when you start to look at these albums as a year, like imagine like you're going month to month buying these albums and you're listening to all this stuff. So you're listening to South of Heaven, you're listening to How I Laugh. Like in that context, No Rest for the Wicked has got to fall short,
Mm-hmm. That's what's happening with me.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're seeing with this list too, like we got through the Van Halens and the Bon Jovis and the Poisons, and those were all kind of grouped together. We're seeing a lot of these thrash albums now being grouped together as well. And even though the Ozzy album was probably his heaviest, it's not close to Slayer. It's not close to any of these other things because he's still kind of going after a different audience. And to your point, he was trying to build out that caricature that he was and trying to figure out where he was going to go and what he was going to do with that. Because ultimately, I mean, we've just recently found out that the Van Halen brothers approached him to do an album, but he chose the MTV show that he was doing over recording with the Van Halen brothers. So
I think it's hilarious when you say that. Well, not you. I mean, when people say we're going for a different audience and what crowd is going to this, it's the same crowd. Like
that's true.
Like people who buy South of Heaven are also buying.
I bought Bon Jovi.
But it's the same crowd.
It depends. It depends where you are, actually, because there are a lot of people that I've met over the years that are huge into like Slayer and things like that, and want nothing to do with Ozzy or Motley Crue or Kiss or stuff like that. And even mentioning that any of those bands influence them just drives them crazy.
It all mixed together. You know, KNAC was our hard, heavy local radio, FM radio, and they played Bon Jovi and Slayer. So you were able to take it all in. Anybody that wanted to piss otherwise was because they were told to think that way.
Right, right. And that has a lot to do with it, and that has a lot to do with where a lot of like the black metal went later on, and having to be pure and true and all that bullshit, instead of, as you pointed out, Anthony, I mean, that Slayer album and the Suicidal Tendencies album, for example, they're both heavy, but they're completely different from one another. I mean, there are elements where these bands, even the Anthrax, even the Testament, yeah, there are common threads, but each band at that point is doing something a little different to differentiate themselves from one another and to endear them to an entire genre of music lovers. And I think people were much more open to a lot of that. Like you're saying, Dan, I mean, when I started listening to a lot of these bands, they were on the same station that was playing The Police and Lionel Richie and Madonna, and then out of the blue, they'd played Judas Priest, and you're like, wow, what's this? What, Black Sabbath? What's that? So I think we were kind of more attuned to wanting to give other things chances. So, All right, number 4. I can honestly say that I'm pleasantly surprised that this album was so high, because I think that this is probably looked at kind of on the lower spectrum of this band's career. Released on January 19th, 1988, recorded in 1987.
On Capitol Records.
Know this one too.
Fucking guys, man. The Clairvoyant Show, starring Metal Dan and Ed.
So what?
Recorded at Music Grinder, Los Angeles, on Capitol Records. Produced by Paul Lanny and Dave Mustaine. Singles include In My Darkest Hour, Hook and Mouth,
in
the UK, and Mary Jane. It is so far so good. So what?
Hook and Mouth is probably my favorite Megadeth song ever.
Hook and Mouth, yeah.
Fuck it, that when it goes down and it comes goddamn back up again.
That's a good one.
Yeah. When he just pulls you in.
That's a good choice for a favorite. Yeah.
I tell you what, the first time that I heard that song was because I bought the Hangar 18 single, and it's them doing that live with Marty Friedman and Nick Menza. So they're playing it a lot faster than the original. So for everyone that I know, Eddie Trunk goes back and says, I don't like listening to certain live albums because they played the songs too fast. I'm thinking, but that was kind of the thing in the 80s, where the bands were trying to show that they could out-musician themselves live. Okay, this is the studio version, but we're really going to floor your ass live. And we're going to play this song louder. We're going to play it faster. We're going to play it heavier. And you're going to go home saying, all right, the studio version was cool, but I need to see them live again, because I need to hear Hook and Mouth as fast and as vicious as it was when they played it live.
It's a headbanger. That's what we did.
Absolutely. Ed, so far so good, so what?
So again, this was, a disappointment compared to Peace Sells, but it was like you knew it was going to be, though, because I don't know. I mean, how can you top Peace Sells? And I mean, we a lot of people feel like he did with Rest in Peace, which was amazing. But I didn't really expect. I don't think I knew what to expect when I first heard this, and it was different, and it took a couple listens to get used to. But I still I learned to love this record, and I still do. I enjoy playing, several of these songs on guitar. They're always fun to play. I think I saw them on this tour with Warlock opening up at Bogarts. That was a good show.
They said all we are.
And now on this record though too, we had to get over the loss of Sam not being there.
Right.
I don't know if he had died already or not.
No.
But he wasn't on this record, and they had Chuck. How do you say his last name?
Chuck Wheeler.
I'm looking at my phone down here. That's why my head's down below the. Anyway, and then of course Jeff Young came in on guitars, which Jeff's a good player, but yeah, he's not like listening to Poland. So there was things to get used to on this record, but I got used to it, and I still enjoy listening to it. I've got the remastered versions, not the ones with the super bassy sound. The 2011. If you want Megadeth remasters, get that 2011 around that era where they did that one in Peace Cells. Or no, I think it's like maybe 2008 to 2012. There's an era where they did remasters without that bass being too heavy, like we talked about before, like they did in those 2004 remasters. But great record to have in your collection. Sorry, I think I'm talking too long there. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Who else wants to talk about this Megadeth album? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just again echo what everybody else has said. Another it's number 4 for me on my list. So definitely a top for me. Even the Anarchy in the UK cover, as far as cover songs go, they sort of made it Megadeth. They didn't just cover it to sound just like the Sex Pistols. Every song on there is just an absolute shredder. Love it.
It's interesting that Megadeth, Slayer, Testament, and Anthrax, and even Judas Priest, all have covers.
One cover on there, yeah.
One cover on each album. Megadeth, Sex Pistols, Slayer, Judas Priest, Testament, Aerosmith, and Anthrax, Trust.
And in the era of having B-sides more prevalent back in that day, they could have just done that, and I don't really know why it's on there.
Yeah, it's interesting because as we were talking about Testament, I had the Wikipedia page up on it, and for example, it said that their contract stipulated that they needed to release at least 40 minutes worth of music each year. So we had less than 40 minutes written up. So they included that cover to make sure that they got over the 40-minute mark.
Got it. Okay.
So,
Brad, anything for you on Megadeth so far in Hooked in Mouth?
I'm going to be putting those songs on Yard Metal. That's for sure. They're not on there yet. So, yeah. This is great, by the way. I love all you guys hipping me to stuff I haven't been listening to. So very cool.
See that? That's why we do this.
Yep. Yeah, I got a long list of things I got to listen to after the show.
Yeah, there was Sean Richmond mentioned that, how checking out a lot of these albums made him find music that he had never listened to, even though it's been out for 30, almost 40 years. So that's, again, one of the reasons why we do this, to revisit things we haven't listened to in a long time and turn people on to things that they may have never listened to before. Anthony, anything about this?
This, I was all about Megadeth at this time. It was probably peak Megadeth for me. And I saw them on this tour. Really loved the album, but never liked how it sounded.
Okay.
And I did not like the drums on it, the drumming or the drum sound.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was able to get over it. And so I was excited when they did a remix. Did he do a remix of this or remat? Yeah. So I bought the remix and realized that the original was actually good all along. So yeah, but yeah, this is peak Megadeth. Saw them on this tour in a smallish place in Dublin on my birthday, and
Wow.
I think maybe 800 people, I think, was in the venue.
Wow, that's cool.
Warlock opening for them then too?
No, it was Sanctuary.
Oh, that would have been better. Yeah.
And it was the night before. Well, the night after I saw them was when Dave did his IRA speech and ended up writing Holy Wars as a result of it.
Yeah.
That was in Antrim.
Cool.
And by the way, Gar Samuelson passed away in '99, so it was 11 years later.
Yeah. So he was out of the band because of his behavior, I guess. Drug addiction.
Yeah, it says drugs and alcohol got both him and Chris Poland fired.
Yeah, I was really sad about that. That was hard to get over.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what could have been, but he died from liver failure, apparently.
You just made me think of how much better I probably would like this album if those two had played. It'd be great to have heard these songs with Poland and Sam Skills, I think.
Well, I tell you what, the original replacements, as per Wikipedia, were Jay Reynolds of Malice on guitar.
Yeah.
And Dave Lombardo on drums.
Yeah.
Good old Dave.
That must have been when he was taking a little break from Slayer.
Could be. All right, so we have 3 albums left.
Come on, let's pick it up. It's getting late here.
Yeah, let's get going.
Shut up, Ed.
No, that's fine. So I'm actually personally I'm happy with how things turned out. 2 and 3 was a struggle up until today. They kept flip-flopping back and forth. They were tied at one point today. And I was thinking, how are we going to break this tie? And then, like I said, I got 4 people that sent in their top 10 lists earlier today. This was a band that I was never keen of until this album. And it made me go out and get a CD player as a result. So the album was released on May 3rd, 1988, was recorded between 87 and 88, was recorded
in Pennsylvania. Motherfucker, I got him again.
Spoiler Dan.
I got it.
Kajam Victory Studios, Gwendolyn, Pennsylvania. Le Studio in Maureen Heights, Quebec, Canada. EMI Manhattan is the label. Peter Collins is the producer. It's saying only 2 singles, and that's bullshit because when I listened to this today,
fucking masterpiece.
There were 15 tracks on this. There were like 13 singles that MTV played back in the day. It is Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. This was the album that made me a fan of theirs. I know that Mark Striegel would go on and on about The Warning and everything that they released before this. Great, awesome, poofy hair, weird makeup. This was musicality. This was socially charged lyrics within a, what do you call this? Not a rock opera, but
yeah. Concept album.
Concept album.
There you go.
Perfect.
But it was. I think it could also be a rock opera.
Okay.
There's actually a story here. It's not just a concept. There's a story.
Yeah. the album is great beginning to end, in my opinion. It is an album that I've consistently listened to since 1988. Was Empire a bigger selling album?
So
Sure.
what? Sucks.
Um,
Silent Lucidity.
yeah.
Fuck
well,
that.
That's the only reason. I mean, Empire isn't a bad album, but it's not Mindcrime, in my opinion. This is, to me, one of my all-time favorite albums. Out of the blue, I'll just start playing the title track or the mission or pretty much anything off of this. So
That's back when we listened to albums all the way through from beginning to end, and that's why it all works. It's just perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, I can't listen to a song on here by itself and not think of the next one starting. You know,
right.
it's tracked so well. It's the story start to finish, and you kind of have to.
Here they are opening for Metallica, I think, on this later on, and
Yeah.
they just grew and world toured then on their own for a headline, and it's like too bad they just couldn't keep it going, but it's once in a lifetime, perfect album.
Yeah. Anthony, anything on this one?
Well, it was my number one, and I was surprised that it was my number one. It was only when I had all the albums out, I was like, well, of course that's the best.
Right.
It's stands up. You can listen to it today. In fact, I did listen to it very recently, and just so good. Lyrics are great. I saw Jeff a few weeks ago in Dublin, and these songs were just head and shoulders above the rest of the set.
Right.
Just great. I saw them on the Empire tour, and they played this album complete. I think we might have discussed this before. Yeah, it's amazing.
Brad, anything on this one?
Yeah, this album's incredible. I got to say, one thing nice about driving around Los Angeles is that you get to listen to a lot of music, and this album, we were able to listen to the whole thing without interruption because we were sitting there on the 605, I think. It sounds, I mean, the album itself is just so great, but it sounds so good. I had to listen to it again with the earbuds. And guess what? You can hear the cymbals. You can hear everything. This album is so good. And just, I didn't see him on the tour for this because they weren't headlining, but we saw him twice on the Empire tour where they did this whole album. And we right after the second time we saw him, we're like, where are they going next? We're going. It was that good. It was just that good. You wanted to see it again and again. And I've seen them do Mindcrime, or Jeff Tate, or do, I guess actually the whole band do Mindcrime long after.
Yep.
And it's not the same. I mean, the band is just not the same, but that's a whole nother story. But this album, fantastic. The live recording that they did in, I think, Milwaukee, Live Crime, that is fantastic as well. And there's a video that goes with that album as well. So if you haven't seen that, you should get it. If you don't have access to it, come to my house. I'll play it for you in my theater, and you will agree that it's unbelievably awesome. There you go.
Ed, anything to say on this one?
No, you can move on there.
Okay. All right. So,
Oh, and one more thing. I can't wind down my window without saying, kill him and get the priest, or kill her and get the priest as well.
Yeah. That's funny because, as you mentioned, I listened to this recently. I was listening to it again today, and just so many bits started coming back to me, and you hear that and you're like, oh man, I know what's coming next. It's just so perfect.
Speak the word.
It's a shame that when they did the second part to this, it was just such a flop. And even they had Dio come in as Dr. X, and you're thinking Dio has this menacing voice at times, and he's singing like so melodic in this song. It's like, no, this character is supposed to be a menacing character. What are they doing? Anyway, let's see if the clairvoyancy continues. All right, number 2. Released on April 11th. Recorded from February to March 1988.
7 Deadly
Recorded at
Sins.
Musicland.
7 Ways to Win.
Munich,
How is this
Germany.
not number one?
On EMI. Martin Birch, the producer.
Oh, how is this not number one?
The Clairvoyant. The Evil That Men Do. Can I Play with Madness? It is another concept album. The streak is broken. I did not see this coming. Seventh Son by Iron Maiden is number 2.
Was this number one at any point?
Never.
Knocked out? No, it never made it to. Oh wow! I can't wait to see
Number one was number 1 since the start.
Oh my gosh!
It caught me by surprise because I said, up until No Prayer for the Dying, Maiden is a shoo-in. There's no way that anyone is going to topple them. But we've often talked with these last few years that there was kind of a changing of the guard. Where people, I know as much as this is my favorite Maiden album, I know that for a lot of people, they don't like this album. They don't like that there were more keyboards on this album, that it got a little, that the songs were longer and stuff like that. There are certain things that turned them off. That Can I Play with Madness was supposedly the only like singable song and stupid crap like that. I've mentioned this story many times. I remember hearing Scott Muni, the DJ on WNEW in New York. They had Things from England on Fridays, and waiting in front of a bodega in my hometown of Dover, New Jersey, sitting in the truck, in my father's pickup truck, and having them play That's the Way I Want My Rock and Roll by AC/DC, because Blow Up Your Video had come out on the same day as Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And they played Can I Play with Madness? And hearing both songs, I was like, yes, they're playing my kind of music on this station who hasn't done so in such a long time. So, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. The story is nowhere near as powerful as Operation Mindcrime. Bruce Dickinson has admitted this, that Queensryche outdid them from that standpoint. It was hard for me to decide between the two albums, which was going to be my 1 and which was going to be my 2. Because I've listened to both albums so much over the years. I ultimately went with this one over Mindcrime, but it's a minuscule difference between both for me. Brad, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son for you.
Okay. When I listened to this week, I was like, holy crap, this is why I love Iron Maiden so much. I mean, I just loved every bit of this album, and it's just like, why do I not get this feeling when I listen to their albums now that they're putting out now? It's just what's different, what's missing. I don't want it to sound, I don't want their new music to sound like this. I just want it to give me that feeling. This album just spoke to my heart all the way through. So loved it, saw the tour, loved it. I think it's a great album. It deserves to be number 1.
I've got 2 words for you, Brad. Martin Birch. That's
there you go. Okay. Well played.
The inmates aren't running the asylum. There was somebody there that said, that's rubbish. This song at 7 minutes is enough.
Yeah.
End it.
Great album.
So, Dan, go ahead.
It was a good time. It's not. This isn't my number one because I needed to push other stuff up higher because it's a top 10 list only. But it was a good time to be an Iron Maiden collector of albums because of all the singles released and to be able to chase those down, coming in from Kerrang and coming in stuff coming over from Europe that you hunt down. I just recently listened to there's a B-sides of Iron Maiden, and that
Yeah.
Black Bart Blues is a lot of fun to listen to and stuff like that. It's just a silliness, but absolutely, it's one of the good albums of the year.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, Maiden is my all-time number one favorite band, and so this is definitely up there in the upper echelon for me. Song for song, there's no filler here. There are no skippers here. It's just solid top to bottom. Every song is perfect for what it is. You can sing along with most all of them. Lyrics will just randomly pop in my head as I'm walking along, and just start going, "Can I play with madness?" And it's all over from there, and everybody just needs to give me some space.
Mm-hmm.
Maiden with cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell.
Anthony, anything to say on Seventh Son of a Seventh Son?
I listened to it recently, and I enjoyed it more than I ever did. Do you know?
Okay.
And that's to say that I was never really convinced by this album.
Right.
In the past, like at the time, should I say? Whereas I listened to it recently, maybe within the last year, and I enjoyed it more than I ever had. I don't know what that means. But,
sense. There's
my interest in Maiden was starting to fade.
Yeah.
I suppose it probably helps by the fact that I hadn't seen them up to this point. It was No Prayer for the Dying when I finally saw them. Is that No Prayer for? Yeah, but then that album's terrible. So they'd already peaked for me. This was the start of the decline.
Yeah. Yeah, but that makes sense. I mean, you weren't into the band as much then, and now revisiting some of the stuff that happens to me with a lot of bands where at the time you're like, yeah, this isn't that good. But then like in a different frame of mind, you go back, you revisit a catalog, and you're like, yeah, maybe this wasn't so bad after all. So I understand where you're coming from. Ed, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Another thing about buying music, especially during that year, because it's another story here of becoming more disappointed with the change in sound. But I still listened to it. I mean, because you had to go and to work or mow the yard or whatever, and make the money, find a way to get to the mall and buy that, and you didn't have the internet to just listen to something else all the time. You invested in it and you listened to it even if you didn't like it, trying to enjoy that something that you spent money on and worked for. And this is another one of those records that I didn't like the change in sound, but Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, they both have great songs, and the production is great. And I feel like Anthony, that with the next record, they lost me. Something changed with the way they sounded production wise, and the songs just weren't connecting with me anymore. And this is another record that, and it's cool to have a batch of records like this that grew on you, and to this day continue to grow on me. And I really enjoy them when I put them on now. It's kind of giving you something different to listen to, something you maybe didn't listen to as much as everything else that was your favorite back then.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, cool. So the number one album, let me see here.
Metal Dan have it there?
I don't have the notes here. Hold on, let me bring it up. Oh, geez, I spelled it.
August 25th, 1988 is the release date.
Actually, it's May 19th, 1988. Was recorded between September. September. Well, this can't be right. I guess it was re-released. Actually, let me see here. Okay, so I see what happened. 1 second. Well, what I was gonna pull up was this, which I have the wrong year. It was Kansas Always Never the Same as the number one. But it turns out that I typed in 88 and somehow picked up an album that was from 98, 10 years later. So joke's on me. Anyway, but the real number one, I'll get my notes up here. August 25th, 1988. Recorded January 28th through May 1st, 1988. Again, released 3 months later, One on One in Los Angeles, released on Elektra, produced by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Flemming Rasmussen. Singles include Harvester of Sorrow, Eye of the Beholder, and One. And it is, of course, Injustice for All by Metallica. So, Dan, you have it there with you?
Comes in 2 albums. It's in over 2 albums. It's so big of perfection. 65 minutes long. Yeah. Not a surprise.
But my question to you is, are you agreeing with Envy, though?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. This is the one that came the day that it came out. I went and purchased it, and you put it on the turntables. You hear it for the first time. I don't remember if KNAC was. They were probably sneak previewing some of the songs, at least one. But I wanted to not listen to and not know, because you knew that the day it came out, you got to go get it. You got to put it on. And I remember being blown away by One. And when you went into work and we were talking about this album with a friend, it's like, did you hear One? What is that? That's different. And then Dyer's Eve and all that, the setup for that. That's all.
Yeah, my introduction to this album was Harvester of Sorrow, because I remember the single came out a few months before the album came out.
Yeah.
And it was played on, Eddie Trunk hadn't played it yet. It was a metal show that was like Sunday nights at 1 a.m. where I would secretly set my alarm clock to wake up, and just enough for me to hit record on the tape deck and just fall back asleep. And then the next day after school, I would listen to whatever was recorded on that side of the tape. And they debuted Harvester of Sorrow, and they were talking about how different it was compared to the rest of the catalog. I didn't like Metallica because of all this stupid shit that I had mentioned to you guys before, with all the dumb stuff that was going on at school. So I heard that and I was like, this is kind of cool. I will say that I've never liked the song One. I just never have, for whatever reason. I've seen them play it live and gotten into it live, but just sitting through it, I think it probably has to do with the fact that I've seen the video 1,000,001 times. And whenever they're on an award show or whatever, they're almost always playing this song. But for parts of my life, this was my favorite Metallica song. And tracks like Blackened and Injustice for All, to me, are 2 of the greatest songs ever written, in my opinion. So I love both of those tracks. And for as much as they now say, oh, well, we were being overindulgent with our playing, and we went too long with the title track and this and that. I fucking love that song. I don't care. I'm glad that they were overindulgent with fills and solos and stuff on that song personally. So, Anthony, Injustice for All.
Yeah, this is huge. It's a great album. Saw them on this tour. They played 2 nights in Dublin. We went both nights. An even smaller venue actually than no, maybe it wasn't. It's quite a small venue. They Danzig supporting them.
Okay.
Yeah, this album was huge amongst my friends and I.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. Because going into this, I forgot that, and I forgot what an impact it was for people our age when one got on MTV, how huge that was, how many people were calling in on radio stations to have that song played and stuff like that. So it's definitely a changing of the guard with respect to Maiden, with respect to Metallica, with respect to some of the other bands that were on this list kind of rising up in album sales afterwards, which was kind of led by Metallica. And I mean, we all know what happened with the following album. Mike, your thoughts on this album?
Again, like what Anthony was saying, I saw them on this tour. Was epic stage show with the collapsing statue and everything. Big, they're kind of their first big production tour. I'd seen them the tour before as well. It was a lot more stripped down, so you could tell that the popularity was coming, the money was coming in, and they were able to apply it to the tour a little bit more. Some absolutely brilliant songs. They did stretch them out a lot longer. Thrash tended to be kind of follow the punk vein before, with the 2 or 3 minute smack them in the face and go away songs, and you've got some 7, 8, 9 minute long songs here, but they work. There's enough variety to it. There are enough pace changes, through the songs to keep you interested. And it was good to see them kind of starting to get their due, even with their first ballad, sort of with one coming out. But it did help with the popularity and help push them along.
Dan?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. Brad, anything? Did you see them on Monsters of Rock?
I saw them on Monsters of Rock, but was this album out then?
This was right before this album came out.
Yeah. So Harvester was the song that they debuted on the tour, and they kicked Van Halen's ass, and they blew up the Memorial Coliseum, and it was amazing.
There you go. There's the review right there. Yeah, we had a blast watching them at the Monsters of Rock. It was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Ed, your thoughts on this album?
Well, I remember that we were all incredibly sad because Cliff had died.
Right.
And we had no idea what to expect, except that we had a taste, with Garage Days. And I think I was hoping for a little more of that Garage Days feel to this record, maybe the production of it. But then, of course, when we got the album, it was very, low on the bass. I didn't really notice that as much as a lot of people did. And I think it's probably because I wasn't listening to it on nice stereo systems at that point. But, the songs were still great. The fact that there's very little bass, it's almost like it's kind of fitting almost because of the weight of Cliff being gone. Because he was such a major part of that band. And it's funny, I remember people giving him a hard time for breaking their vow not to make a video. But that video ended up being my only taste of metal for several months. Because during, in '89, I'll make this story quick, my parents family sent me off to a drug treatment center down in Georgia, in Statesboro, Georgia. I wasn't a drug addict, but that's how they dealt with you. You know, if you have long hair and listen to heavy metal and smoke pot, you know, they send you to a treatment center. And in this treatment center, they had a couple of big screen TVs in the common areas with cable and VH1. And because Metallica did a video of one, I got to see that video every day when I was in that place where they wouldn't let me listen to any music. You know, I went there with music, but they took it all. They took away my music T-shirts, everything. And as you all know, being a metalhead, when you're craving metal every day and it's taken away from you, man, that's hard. So that them doing that song and doing that video sustained me through those like 3 months that I was gone. And then when I made it back home to Kentucky and got an apartment with friends, you know, that's what we were listening to all the time, along with, you know, Death and a lot of these records that we're talking about. So, you know, I didn't like it as much, of course, as everything before it, but I like it so way better than everything they did in the 90s. And yeah, it's a great record to put on any time. I did buy the remastered version, and I thought that sounded pretty good.
Okay. Cool. So that is our 1988 list here. A lot of great music. Like I said, when I post the actual audio podcast of this, you guys can check out the rundown of all 75 albums that were voted on. There's a lot of different stuff on here that some stuff you guys may question why it's on the list. Other stuff that will probably make you go back and say, oh, wow, I forgot about that one. I need to check it out. And overall, I mean, it goes to show once again how cool people are that follow the show and have different types of tastes and what sticks out to them for 1988 related albums. So awesome. I do want to thank Mike, Dan, Brad, Anthony, Ed, and Johan, even though he couldn't make it happen tonight. And I want to thank you guys who are listening and watching the replay of this. I hope you're having a great time checking out this episode. And that is pretty much it, folks. We will see you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See you, folks.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.